To be clear, elite colleges like the Ivies are still charging up to $100,000 a year. So we're talking about schools that don't have the name recognition that a Harvard or a Yale does.
Yeah, that's right. These are not the most well-known schools, but we are seeing this as an increasingly popular trend across the U.S. schools that need to find ways to stand out. Enrollment is down. They're having a hard time attracting students. So they're looking to these tuition resets, as they call them, to get more people in the door. But these are not your brand name schools.
So we mentioned Bethel University. There's a couple of other ones. And the strategy of tuition resets, is it working in the short term? I mean, is Bethel seeing more interest?
They say it is. They say they're signing up more students. They've got more students coming to networking events. There's a school in Virginia where the president went on billboards announcing this. These schools often cater to local students. They're competing maybe with the state school. These are kids that are probably staying in the area. So they have gotten attention. It's definitely working as a marketing tool. They're getting more people in the door. I mean, whether this is a long-term strategy, whether they can stay viable, deep into the future with this, that remains to be seen. But they are saying in the short term it's working.
Yeah, there was Mills College, which is an all-women's school in Oakland, California, that also cut its tuition, but a couple of years later it got absorbed into Northeastern.
If you talk to experts, this isn't the best sign, right? I mean, you can use a comparison to maybe the retail world or when things are going on sale. What does that say about the strength of the brand? So these schools, again, will say in the short term it's working. We're doing this because we want pricing to be more transparent. One of the big stats that is hard to believe is that something like 20% of kids actually pay full price across the U.S. There's a lot of aid. So what they're saying is, look, these prices don't need to be so high. We want to get real transparent pricing, and it is working on a marketing level. Like I said, are they doing it from a place of strength? I mean, Harvard, Penn, Dartmouth, these places are not cutting tuition. They're flooded with applications. Everybody still wants to go to the Ivies and are willing to pay.
Right. I mean, so for as much as people complain about university prices being too high, when they're lower than what people are used to, then they get a little bit suspicious as well. There's one school, Minerva University, which charges an all-in price of about $50,000. But it's different because the classes are online. It sounds like there's no physical infrastructure like classrooms or dining halls or libraries.
It's a really interesting school. They basically created a school from scratch, new model. They wanted to go at cost. They wanted to take out some of the things that drive up the cost. There's no, there's no fancy dorms. They don't have a lot of the frills that we think of at the elite private schools. And it's a $50K all-in price. We had the president in the office here talking to him. He said he actually thinks the price has hurt them because, they don't have great name recognition either. They're new. They're trying to sort of establish their brand. And people are looking at it just like we look at wine, food, anything else and say, if it's more expensive, it's better. I mean, that's a very common thing, right? When we go shopping, we all think that. And what he's saying is that we did all this stuff to keep the price down, and it's hurting us in the marketplace because people think it's cheaper, it must be worse. So very interesting psychologically how you sort of appeal to families and students.
And I guess the big backdrop here as well is that there is a demographic cliff coming where a lot of these schools need to get ready, brace themselves for years in which there aren't enough students for the colleges that are out there.
That's right. I mean, there's been a lot of school closures across the U.S. Often these small religious schools are closing. These places in rural America that can't hold on anymore. State schools have done pretty well because of the value proposition. The elite schools continue to do well, but there's not enough students. Increasingly, young men are not going to college. There's some interesting numbers there. So as a business, higher education has an issue as far as the cost, getting people in the door. And this is a super interesting piece of that world as these schools try to navigate that.